There are only a few hundred survivors of the Holocaust still alive and living in Britain.
He was not the frail, miserable or sad old man I had imagined.
They experienced starvation and torture in the concentration camps that most people can't imagine, and lost most of their friends and family to the gas chambers. In this film, 3 of them tell us their story of the Holocaust.
Whatever you've seen on television, this is nothing.
That was not a holiday camp.
And how they're still surviving their experiences 70 years later.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Oh, wow.
I've still got problems, and I've never sort of forgave myself.
I love life. I love life. I think it's wonderful to be alive.
Have those blown over?
Yeah.
Ziggy Schipper is 82. He started work at the age of 10 in a metal factory in the Lodz ghetto in Poland. He was deported to Auschwitz when he was 14. Now he lives with his wife in Hertfordshire. So you can cook them, can you?
Yes, they're for cooking, they're not for eating. You've got to cook with them. I don't know how good they are. Most probably maybe my wife will even throw them away. She said they're not very good for eating. But can you imagine if that would have been 1944 and I would have found 3 apples and people would have seen me? They would have been all on top of me to get that apple.
You haven't started even for your sandwiches. They get cold, you know.
I have had loads of sandwiches.
You had only 1 sandwich.
No, I had 3.
I counted. You did not.
I did.
You mustn't cheat, you know.
No, it's the truth. I had 3.
Did you?
Yeah.
So I must have had the same amount. So I mustn't have the 4th one.
You should, I think.
No.
Gina Turgel is 89. She was sent to the Krakow ghetto when she was 18, then survived slave labour and working as a nurse in Belsen concentration camp. Why do you love to feed everybody, Gina?
Maybe something left from what I went through, maybe. I don't know, maybe yes, maybe no, I'm not sure.
Nothing worse should happen, right? This is what my wife is telling me. When I die, she will put on the gravestone, nothing worse should happen. Because that's me, the positive thinking. What song shall I play?
Can you play something that you played as a child?
As a child?
Yeah.
Do you think I remember?
Freddie Nola is 90 and lives in North London. When he was 17, he had to smuggle himself from Austria to France to escape the Nazis, but was later caught and deported to Auschwitz.
I'm pretty certain that my optimism saved my life. Because if I would have been a pessimist, I would have given up at many times. And so many people I saw, pessimists who gave up, and they didn't last very long.
Even in the camps and in the ghetto, in the worst times, you know, I always tried to joke with people. Many times I used to get into trouble about it, but I didn't care, you know.
Really? You were joking in the camps?
Yes, listen. There is always something to joke about, you know.
What was there to joke about in the camps?
Well, all different things. God knows what they were, you know. But I wasn't moping around. I must have thought it's no use sitting there and waiting till you get some food and all the rest of it and mope about it. You know you're not going to get it, so make the most of it of what you got then.
I always had my sense of humor.
Even when you're starving?
Well, no, I don't think so, because we were only thinking of food, nothing else, and to stay alive. Yeah. The only thing that I can think of is when I'm free, I go home, lie down on a sofa with a big bucket, aluminium bucket full of hot chocolate. And with this here, I would have a cup with a handle, and I would dip into the chocolate and drink that. And this is my dream of hot chocolate with music background, a beautiful music background. That was my dream. Yeah.
Freddie, Ziggy and Gina all give talks about their experiences of the camps in schools.
Wow, Mr. Nola. Mr. Nola's talk today was so inspiring. He was not the frail, miserable or sad old man I had imagined. Instead, he had a great sense of humor and showed what real courage and strength of character can overcome.
It wasn't until the 1980s that most survivors began to tell their stories. Until then, they were too busy trying to forget and move on. Now they're on a mission to make sure the rest of us remember.
My story is the story of the 6 million Jews who were murdered by the Nazis during the Second World War. I was born in Vienna in 1921, so if you're good at arithmetic, you can figure out that I'm 90 years young. I don't consider myself old. Well, this is my father and my mother underneath the grandfather's clock, and unfortunately they were murdered by the Nazis, actually.
Freddie last saw his parents when he was just 17. Ziggy was raised by his ultra-Orthodox grandparents in Poland before the Nazis came.
Oh, wow. Ziggy, that's been in the daily... But I had a very normal life before the war. To me, it was like I had parents. My grandparents were like parents to me. I didn't feel that I'm missing out on anything. You know, till I got older, I realized.
When did you first try whiskey then, Ziggy?
Oh, I must have been about 18 or 17 or something like that. It was pure bravado to drink, you know. Oh. See, look, nice bottle. It's not an ordinary thing, look.
It's a very fancy one, isn't it?
Much did I think when I was 15, 16, when I was liberated, that when I'll be 80, standing here with a nice young woman, drinking whiskey.
Well, I'm glad you are. Gina's experience of the Holocaust began when she was 18. She and her mother were thrown out of their comfortable home in Krakow and sent to the labour camp Plaszow to work in a factory sewing uniforms.
And we were taken to the camp. We weren't allowed to have long hair. And I was wearing a hood to hide it, but I couldn't hide it for long. Eventually they got hold of me. I've got to have my hair cut. And they cut my hair. I luckily didn't cut all, just the plait, you know, as long as that. And it was terrible depression, but what's, if my life at stake, as you had to do it. And it's no good to moan, because, you know, people get fed up with you.
Gina's appearance is important to her. In the camps, looking fit and healthy could stop you being selected for the gas chambers.
The stench which you experience in Belsen concentration camp with all those bodies lying around. And it was unbelievable. It followed me for many years after. I used perfume to get rid of that. So I like to always look presentable and to look human and so on.
Look, cakes. Well, they've got to know it's Christmas and Hanukkah.
For Ziggy, the Holocaust began when he was a child of 10, and he and his grandparents were forced to move into the crowded Lodz ghetto.
Do you know, they don't leave a crumb. Oh, they're going to have a good time today.
You're even feeding the birds now?
Why not? They've got to live. Now, I wonder if you wait here, I'll bring out someone for the floor as well.
His grandfather died of starvation when he refused the non-kosher food.
My grandparents and I, we had one single room with no bathroom, no running water, no toilet. It wasn't nice. And then, of course, had to go to work. I worked in a metal factory. 6 days a week, 7 in the morning, 7 in the evening. That's why I'm still used to working. When you say 6 panda boxes, you want 6 boxes, full ones? Okay, it shall be that. Listen, will Monday be all right? Lydia, I hope to see you. I hope to meet you. You sound very nice, you know. I'll see you on Monday, please God. Thank you. Bye-bye.
In the ghetto, having a job kept Ziggy out of the camps for longer, and this survival habit is deeply ingrained. He's still working at the age of 82, running a stationery delivery business.
Don't tell me that I've got it in stock.
In 1942, while Ziggy was in the ghetto, Freddie was on the run and Gina was in a labour camp. None of them could have guessed the horror that was to come. Holocaust survivor Gina Turgel is now the chairman of her local Jewish ladies' charity group, raising money for Israeli orphans.
I was afraid it won't be enough.
Oh, yes. Here you are, Gina.
Why do Jewish men all have circumcisions? The reply: no Jewish woman would touch anything without 20% off.
That's very, very good.
A well-delivered.
Wow. Before we go any further, if there are any volunteers to be chairman, please.
Before you all volunteer, can I just say, without Gina there would be no Stan Morwitz.
You're right. Absolutely.
Thank you, thank you. So that means I am chairman again.
You are.
No takers you back.
That woman, I don't know how she does it, that's what I say.
Right.
Absolutely. I don't know how she does it constantly. Amazing. A lot of it, I'm sure, is mind over matter. Half the time she's in agony and still goes on.
Two of Gina's brothers were shot dead in the ghetto when one of them tried to escape. A year later, her sister Miriam was killed by guards who caught her trying to smuggle food into the labour camp for Gina and their mother.
To tell my mother about it. I'm sorry. It was a very difficult task for me. And the tears we shed that night, we could have filled buckets full of. We had to carry wood for the bodies to be burned. Now, can you imagine
for a mother to know this is a child and she's carrying wood for her body to be burned. And as for myself, you see, she always used to sleep on that side of my arm. And I must tell you, from that night onwards until today, I always feel such a chill, like something torn away from me. That was a loss of her. I'm sorry about that.
Freddie's been asked to give a talk by the rabbi at Oxford University Jewish Society.
Because I never sit, I stand.
You stand?
Yeah, I always stand.
In 1943, Freddie was hiding with the French resistance when the end of a love affair landed him on a train to Auschwitz.
I was 22 years old. What do you expect? I met a girl. I fell in love with her. A beautiful girl, Janine was her name, French girl. But Janine was quite moody. And you know, it was a little bit too much for me. One day I said to Janine, enough's enough. You go your way, I go my own way. I really jilted her. And she didn't like it. She went and smacked my face and ran away. 2 days later, I was arrested by the French. And because Jacqueline gave me away to the French gendarme to tell them that I was in the resistance. And on the 6th of October 1943, I was deported to Auschwitz.
Ziggy was also deported to Auschwitz when he was still just a child of 14.
I said to my grandmother, I thought there were supposed to be trains for us. She says, there are here, they're standing in front of us. I said, but there were cattle trucks, there were no trains. I said, that's all there is. And that's when they opened those trucks and they packed us in, and we were like sardines. There was no way you could sit down.
The crying of the mothers, the screaming of the children, the shouting, and the stench, you know. We had one aluminium bucket, a sanitary bucket, where people had to empty themselves into that bucket. No drinks, no food whatsoever. It was a train journey which I will never, ever forget.
Even now, you know, every time I think about it, you know, I feel so ashamed. You know, how can a child of 14 hope that people should die so that he should have more room to sit down? You see, that's what becomes of you. You're completely dehumanized. You're not a human being anymore. You're not even an animal anymore. You're just nothing. But that's what they made us. We become selfish. We don't care about anybody else. All you care is yourself. You know, and that this is one of the only things, you know, that has been worrying me all the time. Because unfortunately it happened that within a couple of days they were taking dead bodies out when they stopped at the station or wherever, and they took those bodies out. So after few days, there was still a little bit more room. It's a terrible thing. If my children would have said that they did that, I would have gone mad, you know. And here it was, I did it myself. I had such thoughts.
Ziggy married Jeanette 10 years after liberation. They have 2 daughters and 6 grandchildren.
Now you see what the family have got, they're all crazy. They all say they take it from me. And I'm such a quiet, shy introvert.
When he arrived at Auschwitz, he had to pretend he was older to survive the selections.
There were German SS troops with dogs and sticks and rifles. And they were pointing left, right, left, right, left, right. And all those people that went to the right were disabled people, old people, children, babies, and some of them, mothers that were holding the babies. And many times the guards came over and told them to put the baby down and go to the other side. But you can imagine, would a mother do it? Of course not. They try to rip that baby out of the mother's arms. Sometimes they succeed. If they didn't, they shot the woman or they shot the baby. A crazy family. Thank God. That's what you want. I can tell you, had it not been for them, you know, my life wouldn't be worth living. It's my life. They are my life. That's all I've got. You see, you've got to remember that I've got no other family. So they're the ones.
Going up? Going down?
Gina has 2 daughters, 1 son, 9 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren.
Hello, Ariella.
Oh, you tidied your hair up.
You want this?
Yes.
You have
Oh.
a new chair.
Yes. You
She
press.
said.
Press. I don't know for what this one is.
It's an ejector seat.
Survivors' children are also affected by their parents' experiences of the camps.
Both
Where's
my
Nana?
parents were extremely strict with me. Very, very
Where's Nana?
strict. Everyone else got away with murder.
Well, we were terrified, you see. We were terrified something going to happen to her. But of course, children never appreciate that the parents.
When I went to a club or anything, my father had to come and pick me
Are you
up.
gonna?
But I don't think that you got short of anything.
I'm not saying that. It's
That you had enough freedom, enjoyment, and so on.
the downside is that it instills nervousness into me. It makes you very, very conscious of everything, and it makes you frightened for no reason at all.
But you're talking now, but that time, how did you feel?
Yeah, I did.
You felt frightened?
Yes, because you know that's how you sort of.
But you were not the only one. All the parents felt the same way
Well, I
about
don't
children.
know about other people.
Yes, but we weren't the only one protected, because we all protected our children.
You know, that is my opinion.
She was a
the
very
wild
bad
child,
eater.
Definitely.
When she
very
was a little girl, I had to run after her with the yolk of an egg.
You know, you had to eat everything. And so I got bigger and bigger. But it was only puppy fat. But it just lasted until I was about 40.
Have you had a sandwich, Anna?
No.
No, go on, sweetheart. Have a sandwich.
No, I don't.
Take a plate and you can eat here. Show that you have a sandwich.
Freddie has 2 daughters and a grandson.
You left something on that plate here.
It's got fat, it's fat.
I don't care, but you better eat it. People would be yearning to get something like that in their mouths in Auschwitz.
It's not good for my cholesterol.
This is just not on. No.
Don't choose it, you'll get it for breakfast.
It took him 30 years to talk to his family about his time in the camps.
I really wanted to forget about it. I did not want to tell something which was so close to my heart. I had nightmares about my happening at night. But I didn't want my family to have the same problems, psychological problems, that I had with my past at that time. But funnily enough, that once I opened up to my children, there were no more nightmares. I got it all out of me.
He hasn't stopped talking since.
But sometimes we know that you're feeling, you know, if you've got a problem with your eye or a tooth, you say, yeah, everything's fine, but you're actually in agony, but you'll never admit it.
Sure. I'm not in agony.
Well done, Susan. A lot of it is an act with him.
Yeah. I don't think so. I really...
No, not a lot.
I believe me, I'm very happy the way I am. Whether you believe it's a fake, this is the way I am, and I'm very happy about it.
But surviving the camps was about more than optimism. Survivors often question why they made it when 6 million others did not. Freddie is a self-confessed Holocaust obsessive. He meticulously researches and documents his experiences.
This is me, the baby. I must have been about 1 year old. And these are my parents. This was taken on a holiday in Vienna, in Austria somewhere. I don't know the date. What else did I find? Oh, Freddie Nola and Roman Halter, another Holocaust survivor, being greeted by the Queen. Desperate Journey, yeah. This is the first one when it was published. They tattooed with needles and ink. This was something that affected me very much. What you are, you're not a human being anymore, you're a number. I was in Auschwitz hospital, Knoller Alfred. All these with this sign here means that they did not leave the hospital, but they died, or maybe they were too weak to work, they were gassed in Birkenau.
Those that survived the Holocaust often needed a bit of luck.
Do you remember being
in the hospital?
Oh yes, and remember it very well, because you know that I had a friend who was a doctor actually, and he gave me extra food, and he sometimes said, "Come on, Freddie, go into hospital, because for a few days, so that you can relax a little bit." And he got me into the hospital.
Freddie's also chair of the Camp and Ghetto Survivors Committee at the Holocaust Survivors Centre in North London. It's a place where survivors can get together with others who share and understand their experience.
I want you to meet our committee here of the camp and ghetto survivors who went during the Second World War in these terrible places in Auschwitz and other concentration camps.
I'm going to sit with you there.
Well, we'll see how many come. We may.
Usually used to choose to sit next to me myself. Things happen, you know.
Sorry.
We can go off for people. Yeah, there's a biscuit for you.
Yeah, wonderful.
He doesn't get food at home, that's why. Your wife has stopped cooking for you, so you have to eat here. And now and then we go a bit mad because of, I don't know whether you can eat for yesterday, can you? Or tomorrow? You can't.
I love women and I love food. This comes back to our background, because food during the tragic period was very important to us. We were always so hungry, so that food was so, our main thoughts were about food. In the morning we got up in the camp, we got some black coffee and one slice of bread with a margarine on it. At 12:30 we went to work. At 12:30 we stopped work for half an hour, and we received a bowl of hot soup, all very liquid, hardly any vegetables in it. In the evening at 6 or 6:30, depending on the season, we went back to our barrack and we received another bowl of soup. And that's all we got, day in, day out, every day. And it was really impossible to do that hard work, to survive it.
Gina is housebound by a bad leg at the moment, but rather than let it stop her, she's invited a local girls' school to hear her talk in her living room.
The instruction is we've got to finish the sandwiches.
Enjoy the sandwiches.
In 1945, Gina and her mother were taken from their labour camp to Belsen.
It was in the middle of the woods. The only reflection was the snow. And we've been greeted by the Nazis. Quick, march, march. We had to jump quickly out and march on foot for several hours, and we found ourselves in Belsen concentration camp. Belsen concentration camp was known to us as a Vernichtungslager, the German called finishing camp. From there is no escape. I could not believe my eyes. I've seen walking skeletons, heaps of bodies, skeletons. You could not distinguish whether they were men or women. Children bodies, mountains of them. And I said to myself, I'm not going to die like that.
Gina managed to survive by getting a job in the hospital looking after German soldiers.
It was really a godsend that I've got a job. And it was a great help. And I managed to get my mother a job in the kitchen peeling potatoes. And the peel of the potatoes she saved. And she brought it into the barrack. The following day I used to take it there, wash it and cook it. I made a soup out of it. And it was a great help. It was just like from heaven.
Did you see people taking advantage of their slightly better position?
Yes, of course. You see, look, I don't know what would have happened to me if I would be in a position that I could do. Honestly, I don't know. Do you know, if you're hungry, and you'll do anything. If you think something will save your life, you'll do anything, I suppose. I don't know. Under certain circumstances, you know, everybody wants to live.
Hello, Harry. Hello. Ziggy spends a lot of time with his best friend, Harry, who's also a Holocaust survivor.
The way you are dressed, you would think it's cold outside.
No.
So why can't I speak to gays and lesbians?
Yeah, no, you
They've
can.
got a society, why not?
No, you can speak, but I don't know what you can say.
They suffered, you know, when I say they, homosexual people suffered the same as the gypsies, the same as the Jehovah's Witnesses.
You know that boy who...
Ziggy and Jeanette have been married 57 years. What's it like being married to Ziggy?
Dreadful, dreadful. Dreadful.
Put the sound down.
Most people say, how do you put up with it all these years?
She deserves
So
a
my
medal.
answer is I do charity work, and that brings me in touch with normal people.
You're trying to tell me that I'm not normal.
In what way, Jeanette, is he not normal?
She doesn't do that exactly.
Have you got lots and lots of time?
Yeah.
All Holocaust survivors' wives have big problems.
What? This is news to all the wives and all
Well, there is a Holocaust centre and there are special counselling classes going on for years.
Sorry, I've got to disagree with you.
Yeah, but you're not a Holocaust survivor's wife.
Every Holocaust survivor would disagree with you, and even the wives.
I have a rabbi coming every month to counsel us.
Oh, you should go there.
See if he thinks it's a joke.
I know it's a joke.
He comes across such a charming man.
He is. In public.
I suppose going through such things would make you...
Well, it's very traumatic. And it leaves scars. Irreparable ones.
Look at those birds now. They take some food down from there because it's hanging there, you see. And when it's on the floor, they eat it because they get pushed away from other birds.
Harry, do you take sugar?
Saccharin, please.
I suppose the camps have more to answer for than most people like me could imagine, really. You know, because it goes on and on, doesn't it?
I mean, I've lived with him for nearly 60 years. I can't imagine what it was like. And I've read and I've mixed with all my life with survivors. They can only relate to each other truthfully.
Now, listen, whatever I am, I'll accept that. But, you know, to put us all into a group, that all Holocaust survivors, according to her, I should never have got married, maybe, and never have a family, certainly not have a wife. That I cannot understand. The rabbis came, of course the rabbis will come to the Holocaust Center. They want us to become religious, you know, to only eat kosher food and only, and observe all the Jewish laws.
Many survivors gave up believing in God while they were in the camps.
How do you view God in relation to the Holocaust?
I must tell you, the only thing that we, during the Holocaust, we only were thinking of to stay alive and food. We were always hungry. But this was religion, that's my own experience. I didn't think much about religion.
So when you say you're always optimistic,
yeah,
which was a very important ingredient to survive, optimism comes together with belief in God.
Believe in God.
Optimism
Yeah.
is connected with belief in God.
I think so.
Because if you have belief and trust, then you could be optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that point doesn't have to be central, but I think always to mention it. I think it is very, very inspirational to people.
Yeah.
When it was so random, Gina, seeing people lose their lives in such a random, cruel way, how do you believe in God and witness that?
I still have got a very strong feeling. Because I could also, people say, oh well, how could you believe what he's done? Where was he there? And so on. A lot of survivors saying that. How could you tell me that I should believe if was he there when he shot my this and this? I said, who are we to judge God? We are not worthy of it. And I feel there is someone above us and gives us the strength to go on. Sometimes it's hopeless, but we can't blame. And I do feel that God exists.
How did you manage to keep your faith in God in the camp?
Well, you know, this is funny you should ask me that because I'm always asked that question. I didn't. I gave up. Even when I was liberated and I asked questions that rabbis and priests and I couldn't accept the answers. So I didn't. I actually gave up religion. It didn't matter what religion. I did not believe. So it was a funny time. There's so many things today, not only that I cannot understand. You know, if I live another 1,000 years, I'm sure I wouldn't understand. I could never understand how a person can kill babies and then in the evening sit down and have dinner with his wife and children and listen to music. We were just lucky, nothing else. Nothing saved us but pure luck.
Ziggy, Freddie and Gina were all liberated in the spring of 1945.
Happened everything very quickly. The gates opened and jeeps and loudspeaker. Voice came through in all languages. We British, we came to liberate you. The Nazis, the Germans got nothing more to say to you. Be happy.
When they gave us the first food was milk and rice, it was wonderful. They said, eat it slowly, they said. Don't stuff it in yourself.
because you haven't eaten for so many weeks. The stomach will not be able to take it. You'll die. You can really be dying. And there are so many people who died because they couldn't resist it. They stuffed their food in themselves. I ate it very slowly, and I was okay.
Thank God that since I was liberated, and I was 15 years old at the time, and today I'm 82, that I've never been hungry since then. I might have said I'm hungry, I must eat something, you know, but that is not hunger, you know.
Gina ended up marrying one of the British soldiers that liberated her.
You see, he made up his mind when he first saw me in a hospital that this is the girl he's going to marry. Never mind me what I thought.
Unfortunately, we could not celebrate our golden wedding. But he was my first love. He was my friend, my boyfriend, my love, my everything, my husband.
But liberation was not the end of their problems. Survivors had to readjust to normal life and society.
You got to remember that when we were in the camps, we were children. We didn't know what life was.
Do you think that you were difficult to live with?
Yes. Listen, I had very bad habits. You know, first of all, I used to drink, not too much. I smoked, and I also gambled. And gambled over the top. And it's only, you know, I'm 82, I'll be 82 in January. It'll be only 32 years that I gave up gambling. And, you know, to live with somebody, you know, that gambles. Today I can think of it. If I would know that my daughter is married to somebody that gambles, I would kill him. Because I know the problems that I had and the things I did, you know, that I never should have done.
I don't know the words, but the
greatest fear that we survivors have is actually that once we are not here anymore to tell our stories in schools, that the Holocaust will be forgotten. And that's the greatest fear that we have. We only hope that somehow or other these films that you're making, and even, I must say, even my grandson who promised, he wants to tell the story of his grandfather.
Brilliant!
You should not put that onto tape.
Why not? Why?
Because the words would.
The words,
totally
I forgot the words.
Matter.
It doesn't matter. No, it's okay.
That is lovely.
Well, Norman, he said to me afterwards, he said, if you would have told me those atrocities what went, I would have never believed you. It seems unbelievable, the atrocities which I went through. Am I really alive? And I was there. And I must tell you, this is a miracle. So I only hope that the future generation and generations to come should never experience what I have experienced.
You know, even today when I tell people things, you know, sometimes I think to myself, how can they believe it? It's very, very hard, you know. Another survivor, you know. They're all survivors, old friends of mine. Daisy, that's another Holocaust survivor. This one doesn't. He pretends he's too young to be a survivor. That's his wife, Michael, Jasmine. Another Holocaust survivor. She isn't.
I'm a survivor.
Yeah.
Married to one is a survivor.
I told you. I told you. They all complain, them wives.
I didn't complain. I said I'm a survivor. Anybody that's married to you lot is a survivor.
However they made it through, Britain's Holocaust survivors are still busy surviving their experiences today. Their resilience, optimism and enthusiasm for life keep them a step ahead of their painful memories.
I think I should play the lottery every day because I'm sure going to win the big prize with my luck. People always say to me, don't knock it. I said, why? I'm not going to die young, am I?
Next on More 4, Guy Martin's off to be beside the seaside in How Britain Worked. Over on Channel 4 next, will Mark Wahlberg fight his way to the top in spite of a pesky Christian Bale? Find out in the network premiere of The Fighter.